All right, let's dive into one of the most absolutely terrifying moments in, well, all of modern history. We're talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis. For 13 days, 13 very long days, the world's two biggest superpowers were literally eyeball to eyeball, right on the brink of nuclear war. The future of, civilization itself was just hanging by a thread.
The year? 1962. And look, that date is seared into our collective memory for one very simple, very chilling reason. This was it. This was the closest the world has ever come to a full-scale, you-can't-come-back-from-it, catastrophic nuclear war.
And I'm not being dramatic here. This isn't hyperbole. The stakes were just astronomical. We're not talking about some regional conflict. Nope. This was a global standoff where the push of a single button could have kicked off mutual assured destruction. You know, that chilling idea that if one side launches, both sides, and probably the rest of us with them, would be completely, totally annihilated. You can just imagine it, right? The entire planet was holding its breath. Okay, so let's get into it. A presidential ultimatum. We're on day 9 and the world is holding its breath. After days of these incredibly secret, super high-stakes meetings inside the White House, we are jumping right into the absolute heart of the crisis. Tensions are at their peak, seriously. All the pieces are on the board, and the very next move, well, it could be the last one.
So here's the situation. American spy planes have confirmed it. The Soviets are building nuclear missile sites in Cuba, and Cuba is just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. I mean, these missiles could hit almost any city in the United States in minutes. So the question for President Kennedy wasn't if the U.S. was going to respond, it was how.
And this was the answer. There was zero ambiguity, no room for anyone to misinterpret what he meant. President John F. Kennedy went on television. He spoke to the entire world, and he drew an unmistakable red line. This was not an invitation to sit down and talk it out. No, this was an ultimatum. It was a crystal-clear warning. You launch a missile from Cuba, and we will treat it as a direct attack from the Soviet Union itself. Game on.
Now, let's talk about the international response. A world united. You see, throwing down an ultimatum like that is, well, it's incredibly risky if you're standing all by yourself. So the next huge question, the one everyone was asking, was how the rest of the world was going to react. Specifically, what would America's allies do?
I mean, just think about that for a second. The whole world is standing on the edge of a nuclear cliff. Would other countries just back away, try to stay out of the crossfire? Or would they actually stand with the United States? The answer to this question, man, it was absolutely critical.
And the answer came back, and it was immediate and powerful. There was zero hesitation. The entire NATO alliance, they all stood shoulder to shoulder with the United States. They presented this single, totally unified front. So suddenly, this wasn't just America versus the Soviet Union anymore. Oh no. It was the entire collective West, sending a very clear message. We will not be intimidated.
All right, let's talk about why this day, this whole crisis, really matters. Because why do we keep coming back to these 13 days? It's way more than just a dry history lesson. This crisis, it left behind this really powerful and, well, lasting question. A question about diplomacy, about power, and about what it takes to survive in the nuclear age.
And it really all boils down to this. In a moment of crisis, what is the true value of a single, clear warning? When absolutely everything is on the line, when one tiny miscalculation could literally mean the end of the world, how important is it to be absolutely 100% clear? Was it Kennedy's bold, unambiguous ultimatum backed up by that unified alliance that pulled us all back from the brink? Or was it maybe the tense, back-channel negotiations that were happening behind the scenes? Look, the answer is complicated for sure, but the question, that's something that's still so important to think about, even today, long after the crisis of 1962 faded into the history books.